So, my story starts as all good stories do with I met a girl. Why not, right? Uh, I had just moved from Washington, D.C., where I was working at a top law firm, a litigation firm, an appellate firm, actually. And I moved to Los Angeles, California. Is anybody here from the Los Angeles area? Yeah, there's two of us. This is great. And well, three. And I remember my first night in Los Angeles. It was 2005. My first night there, literally, my bags were still in the back of my sister's car. My sister, she was living in the Valley, and she brought me to a work party. Oh, I'm sorry, a party. And my bags were in the back of my sister's car. So I have an accent. I grew up in Boston, so we're gonna have to work this out. So anyway, so my sister, she picks me up at the airport. My bags are still in the back of my sister's car, and we're gonna get along just fine. I promise. That by tomorrow morning, you won't even notice it. Hopefully. So she picks me up and she drives me. I'm still literally my bags are still in the back of her Bronco. How about that? And and she brings me to this work function of hers. And she had been kind of talking me up, so I had a little bit of a reputation. She had said, "Oh, my older brother's going to be coming in, and you got to meet him. He's really fun, and all this stuff." And I'm standing. It's this high-rise building on the backside of Los Angeles. You have the ocean, you have Los Angeles, and then these like luxury apartments up in the hills right there, and they're absolutely gorgeous. So I was standing out on the balcony in one of these apartment buildings, and and I'm surveying my new kingdom. You know what I mean? I'm looking at the skyline. The skyline is absolutely beautiful. It's gorgeous. And I'm imagining what life has in store for me. I was in my early mid 20s. Life was going really great for me, working at another one of the nation's biggest and best, one of the world's biggest law firms, working on really cool cases, meeting celebrities, having a ball. And my first night there, and in the front door of this apartment walked the most amazing girl I've ever seen in my entire life, guys. Like, she's absolutely gorgeous. She's my wife now, just so you know. And she walks in, and I had a little bit of reputation, so she wanted to come and meet me. And I was standing on the balcony. So Rihanna, she walked from the front door, and the way that she just carried herself in that room, like she was just amazing. Like she wasn't like cocky. She was confident though. Head up, walked back, and clearly people kind of wanted to touch base with her. So she was cool. She was popular, and she caught my eye for sure. So she's walking through the room as quick as her little legs would carry her, and she walked smack into the screen door. And she fell, no lie. She fell back onto her bottom. She's sitting on her bottom, and she flung her dark brown hair back and let out the most amazing laugh I've ever heard in my life. Now, I didn't know this at the time, but walking in the screen doors is like her thing. It's like what she does. She does it all the time. She still does it. It's unbelievable. And that night, that night, I told her I loved her. She was sitting right next to her boyfriend. Yeah, oh yeah, because that's the kind of guy I was. I mean, I still kind of am. I'm bold. I put myself out there. I'm somewhat fearless. I'm not worried ever what people think of me, honestly. So I just threw it out there, and eventually she stopped dating that loser, and she started dating me. And then something happened. Something happened that changed the course of our relationship. It was our first Easter together. And my brother, he sent me an email that I wanted to show to her because I thought it was the funniest email I've ever seen. It was an email, I can't remember the exact details, but I remember it was mocking Jesus, mocking the cross. Flames were involved somehow. And I couldn't wait to print this out because it was before iPhones and stuff. I wanted to print it out and show it to Rihanna, and then we'd have this bonding moment as we mocked Jesus and thought about how ridiculous this was. Because, you see, I wasn't a Christian. I was an atheist. I was a hardcore atheist. Meaning, if I found out that you were a Christian, I would have to get to know you. And I'd ask you, hey, can I take you out to coffee because I need to tell you how stupid you are? Because I need to beat the faith out of you intellectually. And that's who I was. And then Rihanna, she came over, and I couldn't wait to have this conversation with her. We'd been dating for a couple months. And I showed her this email expecting one reaction of joy and laughter and how stupid these Christians are. Instead, her countenance completely shifted and changed. Instead, she said to me, John, I've been meaning to tell you something for a while. I went, uh-oh. She said, John, I'm a Christian. And I went, oh, no, you can't possibly be a Christian. You're one of those. You're one of those. I would have her over, and she came out, and she was really brave. I'm glad that she did this. And I remember dating her, and when I was dating her, I was living in Hollywood, and I would have her over I lived in a duplex, and I would have her over for dinner, and I'd be cooking her dinner, and I'd say things like, Rihanna, I thought that you were an intelligent human being. Are you telling me you believe in Adam and Eve? That's dumb. Are you telling me, I thought you were smart. I thought that you were really smart, and you're telling me that you don't believe in evolution? Everybody believes in evolution. How ignorant are you? I would say these things to her. And if Rihanna was standing here right now next to me, she would have a different view of how things went, I think maybe a little bit. But she would say two things. First, she would say she left every date crying for two reasons. One is she knew the relationship couldn't go anywhere. You see, guys, this story, my story is not an example of now go out and find yourself a pagan to date so you can convert them. That doesn't usually work out that well. You know, I'm the exception, not the rule, so don't misunderstand what I'm saying here. She knew it couldn't go anywhere. I knew it couldn't go anywhere because I couldn't marry one of those stupid Christians. And she would say that I was actually, I was her rock bottom is what she, and I mean, what guy doesn't want to be some girl's rock bottom, right? I mean, hey, might as well, you know? But she would say that was her rock bottom because she was on a path. She was on a journey. And she had a faith perspective, she was at a bottom. She had always been a Christian. She grew up knowing the Lord. She grew up knowing what church was and knowing who Jesus is and relying and counting on him for her salvation. And so she was in the depths of a backslide, I guess is what you'd call it. And she found herself with me, an ardent atheist. Now, I'm not going to continue the story. Maybe tomorrow we can talk more about it. But I want to do something with you guys. In a minute, what I want to do is I'm going to put on my atheist hat right here. Beautiful Boston Red Sox hat. Jesus loves the Red Sox, by the way. Yes, thank you. Jesus, it's Jesus' team. No. I'm going to put this hat on, and then I'm going to become Atheist John. And I'm going to dig into you guys. And I expect you guys to try to dig into me. I'm going to argue as to why I don't think you should be a Christian, and you can try to convince me one way or the other. Does that sound good? Kinda? How you feeling? It's going to be okay, I promise. I can see the anxiety on your face. Oh, I love it. All right, so I'm going to put this on, and I'm going to turn around. When I turn back around, it's going to be Atheist John. Does that sound okay? Is that okay, guys? Are you guys awake? All right, wonderful, wonderful. How about over here? You guys awake? Yeah. Nice. You ready? Here we go. Awesome. Oh, hey guys, how's it going tonight? Good. My name's John, and up front, I just want to say I am so thankful for you. Normally, I don't get invited to things like this. Normally, normally I think I don't belong at things like this, or at least the leadership of whoever runs this place would think that I don't belong at things like this. And I think that bringing me in is really courageous. Because you and I, us, everybody here, we are pretty much all the same except for one difference. And that one difference is that I am not a Christian. I am an atheist. But I believe me, trust me, I am normal. Okay, I don't eat babies and stuff like this. I like hanging out with people. I actually brought two of my daughters here with me. I just actually, you know what? I actually just believe in one less God than you guys. So if you actually think about it, you guys are basically all atheists too, to the 30 million or so other gods that are out there. I'm presuming you guys just believe in one God. Is that right? Yeah? Okay. And I'd like to discuss why I think maybe you're a Christian and why maybe I'll offer you some reasons as to why you shouldn't be a Christian. But I don't want you to get all anxious. I'm not trying to deconvert you or anything, guys. That's not my gig. I'm just I like to dig in to understand why people believe what it is that they believe. And I would say that I can explain why you guys are actually all Christian. If you grew up in a Christian home, could you raise your hand for me? All right. Nice. Who here was homeschooled Yeah. I think we are influenced by our environment. You see, I didn't grow up in a Christian house. My mom, my dad, they're not atheists like me, but they're kind of just wish-washy, you do you, like relativist type people, and they don't hurt anybody in their beliefs. And so they never instilled a faith, like a blind faith in me. So I kind of gravitated towards science. And now I live in a world where I like and believe, I believe the things about the world that I can actually prove. So I don't need to believe things on just superstition, you know? And I think a lot of times what happens is we take on the superstitions of our parents. Most of you, when I asked if you're a Christian, you raised your hand. Because most of you who grew up in a Christian home. And then the homeschoolers, well, you can't do anything else but be a Christian. You don't have the opportunity, because you just, you're in a bubble. And I'm not saying that's bad. I'm not saying that bad. In fact, I think belief in religion is a lot like music. It's a lot like music, I think. Some of you guys like, this guy on the screen. I don't have the music playing, but Bruno Mars. Who here likes Bruno Mars? I love Bruno Mars. Yeah, absolutely. He's one of the best out there, Some of you guys like this stuff here. Who here likes Led Zeppelin? That's what I'm talking about. Yes, I didn't think Christians could listen to Led Zeppelin. Oh my gosh, really? Oh my goodness, dude. Yeah, that's insane. Yeah, so some of you guys like Led Zeppelin. Some of you guys are gonna love this. Boo! Taylor Swift. Okay, everybody, I want you guys, okay, close your eyes. Everybody, close your eyes. Very quietly and slowly. Close your eyes. Quietly and slowly. Raise your hand if you like Taylor Swift. Nobody's looking. All right, you can put your hands down. Everybody open your eyes. See, there's a couple of you with your eyes closed can admit it. Absolutely. Some of you guys like Justin Bieber. Some of you guys like some of you guys like old school hip hop. Some of you guys like jazz, Well, religion is the same way. You believe what you believe what works for you with religion, with music, you just believe what you like. And it's the same thing with religion. It's just a matter of personal preference. And like what my mom says, you do you, boo. As long as you don't hurt anybody, it doesn't really matter, because ultimately, in the end, all religions are pretty much the same. If you think about it. Think about their core teachings. Love. Obedience to ancient way. Putting others maybe before yourself. All of these major themes of every world religion can be found threading through them all. They weave a tapestry through every single major world religion. What do you guys think so far? What do you think? Yeah.
I think you're correct in saying that a lot of major religions do teach about love. I do believe that. But I also think that there's a big difference between Christianity and the rest of the religion. And that one difference is the way our God loves us.
The way your God loves you is better than the way other gods love you? How's that?
A lot of other religions, their gods are gods of fear. You have to worship the gods, and sometimes you even sacrifice for them to love you. But in Christianity, Jesus loves me, and he died for me on the cross, despite my sin, despite the evidence in my own life. And I didn't have to do anything to earn that, but say, Jesus, I love you, and I confess with all my heart that I love you.
Yeah, I think all that sounds sweet. But when we think about it, you got to ask the question, is it true? Because if I do this, if I say the same thing to a Muslim, they're going to say the same thing to me, the same exact thing. And there's a few things in there that I thought were really interesting, because your God loves us differently, except for your God is so exclusivist, I'd say, that if I don't adhere to one way, then he's going to torment and torture me forever and ever. That's not me, that's what your Jesus supposedly said, right? I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father but by me, is what Jesus says. Jesus is basically saying, like, it's my way or the highway. Get on this train or get off. Even worse, Get on this train or you're going to burn forever. Yeah, that's a really loving God. I mean, fantastic. Why couldn't he just save us all? I don't get it, you know? Yeah. We're up high. I understand. Trust me. So you know, that's a really interesting way to put it. I would put it the exact opposite way. What is the point of having a loving God and the gospel? Well, let's just explore the gospel for a second, which entails child torment and sacrifice. Okay, a disgusting display of a abusive father-son relationship. But even so, I'd say, what is the purpose of having that and allowing people to have free will if knowing full well that most of the people that you create, by the way, are going to reject your exclusivistic system and then you're going to send them to hell. It's almost as if God knew this ahead of time, set up a system for the majority of the world population to fail, and then laughs as they do. This is actually, and this is really interesting. Sometimes the Christian, you guys think that your God is so good, right? I mean, what about all the gnarliness in the Bible too? We've talked about Jesus a bunch, but what about, have you guys ever read the Old Testament? Yeah. What about the justification of slavery? What about the child sacrifice that he permitted? What about the sacrificing of animals and those ancient archaic systems? You know, I mean, it's just, I mean, it's barbaric. Is really what it is. You know, or oh, dude, have you guys read Joshua? Yeah, you've read Joshua, right? She's like, yes. What did he order the Israelites to do to the Canaanites? Genocide. Wipe them out. To quote your God, he said, go and utterly destroy them. Every man, woman, child, and animal. Is that a good God? You see, one of the reasons why we have so much violence in this world is because we believe in these ancient mythical stories. If we would just evolve through them, evolve past them and enlighten ourselves and understand that we don't need to blindly step into these stories to understand the world around us, I think the world would be a better place. You're squirming. Do you want to say something? Okay, right on. I like it. Did you want to say something? Did I see your hand go up? Right on. Yeah. Yeah. I think that without religion, the world would be a better place. Yeah. Well, because the majority of the world's wars are fought in the name of one or another, one god or another. The majority of violence that's done in this world from one people group to another is done in the name of one or another god. You know, I'm not saying it's always the Christian God. I mean, the Christian God certainly has a lot of blood at, you know, at his feet, so to speak, and on his hands. But every other god too. I mean, the God of Islam, totally violent. It's yeah. So if you eliminated religious systems in general, I think that the world would be a better place. I don't think it's a. Why would it be an overgeneralization fallacy? No, but I can survey the last, I don't know, 500 years. We can start at the Crusades, right? Millions of people dead in the name of Yahweh, right? We can trace that all the way through to modern day September 11th, 2001, when a group of Muslims, in the name of their God, flew their planes into buildings, killing 2,000 Americans, all done in the name of God. So I mean, we can survey enough of history, you know. Yeah. See, this is a misunderstanding actually, because no war is fought in the name of atheism. Yeah. So they're fought in the name of political systems, where oftentimes these people make themselves out to be God. Yeah. 100%. But you're helping prove my point. What's your first name? Daniel. Thank you. Because you're helping prove my point. Because if you start reading Hitler and as to why he started the wars, know who he was reading? He was reading Nietzsche, yes, an atheist. But he took Nietzsche a step further and tried to deify himself. He was trying to create an Aryan race, a better race of people, and that he was trying to make this superhuman race in order to be closer to God. He actually quoted Jesus quite a bit in his writings. I mean, misunderstanding perhaps. I'll give you that. I'm not saying that he was a Christian by any stretch of the imagination, but it was a certain religious endeavor behind him. It wasn't his atheism. Atheism is a simple belief of against God. There's no God, is what atheists believe. Out of atheism comes just that one thing. No, I don't think so, because all you on evolutionary theory, I think we can have altruism and right and wrong. This is where we get social contracts. Thomas Hobbes wrote a lot about this, social contracts. Hegel wrote a lot about this, about Hegelian dialectic, that as we see evolution work in our populations, we see moral systems rise and fall, as opposed to just one person with power stepping into that power and saying, in the name of my God, kill your neighbors. Yeah.
We talked a lot, like, kind of getting a lot of back and forth. What I want to do is I would like to ask you, what are some of the reasons, or how did you become an atheist? Like, what made you
Oh,
yourself come up with that perspective?
thank you for asking that. What's your first name? Dakota. Nice. Yeah. So I would say that what happened is uh, I looked at the evidence as to the way the world really is. That's reality. And I tried to see what system of belief best explains the world around me. And that's how it's supposed to be done, right? But that's not how Christians do it. You see, what Christians do is you try to force your system on top of the evidence. Or what I've done is I've taken the evidence in and I've processed it and I've tried to apply hypotheses on top of the evidence to explain them. And every time I do this, every single time, I don't need to posit some sky daddy. I just don't need it.
Can I ask you a follow-up question about that?
Yeah, please.
So,
You're so polite.
in regards
It's not normally the way I get treated.
in regards to, say, the Dead Sea Scrolls,
Yeah.
where we have the historical evidence of that being talked about, and then we also have the evidence that it is true that, like, those exact things were brought up. What would you say about that?
Well, I'd say you're mistaken. I'd say you're mistaken that what you guys read in your Bible is actually not what was originally written. You have no idea what was written. In this article of Newsweek, this guy Kirk Eichenwald, he wrote a great article. You guys should look it up. And in it, he says that nobody has read the Bible. No preacher, no politician, nobody has read the Bible. What you've read is copies of copies of copies of copies of translations of translations of translations of translations. In fact, did you guys know how many words do you think are in the New Testament? In the New Testament, it's actually only about 160,000 words in the New Testament. How many errors do you think are in the New Testament? What's that? A couple? Yeah. Try 300,000 errors. This isn't my number. This is the Christian scholars, Gary Habermas, Mike Licona. They agree to this. There's twice as many errors in the New Testament than there are words in the New Testament. And you guys, you believe this. I can prove this to you guys. Have you guys ever noticed these errors? Who has a Bible on them? Who's the good Christian? Who's the good Christian? Yeah, awesome. Can you guys flip open to the last chapter of Mark. Okay, flip over to the last chapter of Mark, Bobby. And about the last 9 verses, you should have a footnote. What's the footnote say? Whoo, Nelly. That's called the long ending of Mark. It doesn't belong there. It's not supposed to be there. It's a huge error. And the reason why it's such a bad error is because you get rid of that last few verses. Guess what you get rid of? Resurrection. Know what you end with in Mac? If that's true, Jesus dead and buried, just like everybody else. So the things that you think that you read actually aren't what were written, is what I'm saying. And these errors are everywhere, by the way. I mean, everywhere. Yeah. Yeah, so check this out. Do you guys know how Matthew, Luke, and John got their stories? They copied Mac. They did. Mac is agreed upon to be the earliest. So they copied him. What happened is there's copyist errors. That long ending has now been discovered that shouldn't be there. Well, guess what? That error got transmitted over into the other Gospels. And you can't even know who wrote these Gospels anyway. They're not named. These are later inventions. Council of Nicaea and then these things. Our early church councils what decided what they're going to title the Gospels. Yeah.
How would you use a counter-argument for eyewitness testimony?
Yeah, eyewitness testimony is terrible testimony. As a former lawyer, eyewitness testimony is terrible testimony because it's shown itself to be completely unreliable. It's actually the worst type of testimony. People lie. Well, you don't always. You can have 5 different witnesses that see the same event and they see it 5 different ways. You don't know the cow was blue that smashed into the gray van. No, the cow was red that smashed into the yellow van. It's like, wait a second, did you guys see the same thing? And that's what happens with eyewitness testimony. It's also the Gospels, just so we know, guys, let's just get it clear, they're not written by eyewitnesses. The Gospels are written hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years after Jesus lived. So they're not eyewitnesses. Yeah. Well, maybe not in that example I just came up with off the top of my head, but if you're putting 3 witnesses on the stand and they all have different testimony about colors of cars, is it going to call into question the major event, the crash? And then if I could show you that actually what they're doing is they're just copying one person, if they're all just copying one person and they're saying there's a crash because they all talked to Billy. Billy told them there was a crash, and that's the only reason why they're saying there was a crash. Then you discount their witness, and I think that's what's happening with the Gospels. Yeah.
So you said that the other Gospels were copying Mark.
Yeah, well, Mark and also there's another source, but yeah.
Okay. In Mark chapter 1, verse 12 and 13, there's just 2 verses talking about the temptation of Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Verses in Matthew, it's Matthew 4.
Mm-hmm.
There is total of 11 verses describing the temptation of Jesus. How would Matthew know about the temptation of Jesus if Mark only wrote 2 small descriptive verses about that event?
Yeah, embellishment. That's simple.
I don't know what that word
Matthew was exaggerating. He was taking something. The reason why he embellished on the temptations of Jesus is because the temptations of Jesus spoke to Jesus' deity. So at the time that Matthew was written, 300 years after Jesus, you want to know what the big controversy was? Whether or not Jesus was divine. So what Matthew was doing is taking a cultural issue that was coming into play about a system of belief that he was adhering to, or the author of Matthew ever be, and they were addressing that cultural, that contemporary claim 300 years after Jesus, embellishing on that one little event in order to prove a point, not because it actually happened.
Can I ask what you think their motive would be? Because
Yeah.
many of the people who stood up for Jesus got murdered for it brutally.
Yeah,
And
supposedly.
What would be the point of lying about that and literally dying for it?
Yeah, I would say supposedly, and I'm not trying to be like tongue-in-cheek here. I'm saying supposedly because actually the historical record is unclear as to what happened to the apostles. We know maybe with a fair amount of certainty that Paul was beheaded, but other than that, everything else is tradition, church tradition. So we don't really know. That aside, why would they die? Well, because we're sitting here talking about them today. The same reason why anybody lies. Fame, fortune, or sex. These guys are now, I mean, cultural icons. We talk about them every day. That's why. Well, I mean, who knows if they benefited or known? The only reason why we don't think they benefited or known or would have known is because we are basing belief on church tradition that they actually died horrible deaths. They could have not. Yeah. It depends. Muslims flew planes in the buildings for a lie. Well, I'm not saying they didn't think it was the truth. But I mean, people think things is the truth all the time. It doesn't mean it's the truth. And we also don't know if Peter was crucified upside down. That's church tradition. That's not history. None of this stuff is actually history, by the way, guys. It's all firmly planted in ancient Greco-Roman mythology. It's called mytho-history, and that's not my term. That's William Lane Craig, who's the probably most popular Christian apologist right now, is categorizing the Gospels as mytho-history. Yeah. Great question. So there's actually a fantastic process called historiography, and they use a system of comparison called textual criticism, where what we do, say we want to read Shakespeare and see if Shakespeare actually wrote Shakespeare. We're going to gather up all the copies of Shakespeare that we have, and we're going to compare them across each other and see where the errors are and stuff like this, and date them through things like carbon dating and stuff like that. So yeah, there are historical methods in how we can do history rightly and decide whether or not these things are accurate. Yeah. Yeah, super interesting. This is like a hobby horse of mine. This isn't my field at all, but this is a hobby horse of mine. There's a great book, I'm trying to remember the name of it, by Christians that just came out maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Mistakes in New Testament Textual Criticism is the name of the book. I know, super exciting title, right? And it just grabs you. But what they do is they actually explain how they've miscategorized. New Testament scholars have miscategorized a lot of these manuscripts, and they're counting them over and over and over again. So what they're doing is you believe that you have thousands and thousands of copies of whatever manuscript, and what's happened is it's actually a lot of copies, fragments from the same manuscript, but they're fragments, so we don't know that. And now we're able to piece them together. So the Bible is maybe average, probably less than average. The more time goes on, the more we find out that there are so many errors. Bart Ehrman, New Testament scholar at UNC Chapel Hill, is the one who threw out that statistic that I threw out about the number of errors compared to the words. This is a scholar in New Testament textual criticism. Yes. A discrepancy between two documents. So if one document has something and another document has something else. Now there's different types of errors for sure. Some errors are more serious, like long endings of books. Some errors are like spelling mistakes. But I'm not the one that's claiming I have an inerrant book. You know, it's the Christian who says they have an inerrant book, where I'm just saying that's just not true. It's blatantly false. Yes.
Doesn't that mean, or because of the discrepancies there, doesn't that make sense that they aren't all copied from Mark? If there is, like, they're not all the same. If they were all copied from Mark, they would have been the same.
Sure, I get that, but no, because there are embellishments and these authors are trying to prove points. So I don't think so. No. Someone over here? Yeah.
Yeah, I want to continue talking about the errors, because if you're taking Greek and like, what do you mean by errors? Because if you're gonna have the
Yeah.
original Greek and you're translating to English, like, well, how are you gonna have spelling mistakes?
Yeah, it's the same way if in English. Like if I were to put a document up here on the screen and had everybody here copy it down, you guys could all copy it down, a paragraph, right? But some of you in this room are dyslexic, and you might transpose an A and an E that are next to each other. Some of you are just terrible, like me, at spelling, and you're just going to misspell a bunch of words. There's probably one or two of you in here that's going to be like, haha, I'm going to show them, and you're just going to insert something wrong. Some of you are going to miss a line if it's a long enough document. Those are errors. Those are errors. Yeah. So that means like we don't really know what's in the originals. You know, how do we know what's in the originals with all these errors? Yeah.
My understanding with the scribes in Bible times is they would have whatever they're copying and they would copy it down. And if they made a mistake, they would restart the entire thing until there were no mistakes.
Yeah, I think that's a romanticized version because otherwise, why do we have so many errors?
Are you just counting spelling as an error? 'Cause that
No, I'm
makes-
counting long endings to books. Woman at the Well is largely the story that we all love, well, you all love, is largely considered not to be original. I mean, there's lots of other ways. The different names of Jesus are oftentimes wrong. You know, they're calling them something different that carry meaning. You know, yeah. Yeah, my comment about being romanticized is in response to the claim. What was the claim that you just made?
that they restarted when they made a mistake.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. That's good. So they restarted when they make a mistake because we don't have a lot of evidence for that. We have oftentimes is romanticized, and this is normal. Like I'm not saying it's wrong. This is what we do. Like the human mind, we imagine things, and because we want to justify things, especially when we believe them. When we want to believe them, our minds are going to do whatever it takes in order to maintain that belief. Oftentimes, you look at me like I'm crazy. This is like, well, no, I'm explaining the actual process. And actually, I'd say that my view actually I've intentionally dropped presuppositions and moved outside of them. And I think that's what it takes. So that's what I mean is it's romanticized is I think that we have a view sometimes of a procedure and how it's done when it's actually not as like, you know, I have Christian friends who think like Paul, like if he wrote his